I still remember the moment as if it had been burned into my brain. A quiet family dinner, my wife, her mother, and I sitting around the table. The conversation was casual, lighthearted, until I caught her mother smirking. Then, my wife leaned in and whispered something that made my stomach turn. "He's a joker in bed." Her mother laughed. My wife laughed. It was a cruel, dismissive kind of laughter, the kind that dripped with hidden meaning. I was supposed to play along, brush it off, but something inside me cracked that night. I didn't show it. I simply smiled, let out a forced chuckle, and continued eating. But in my mind, I was already filing it away, another piece of evidence in a case that had been building for months. Because I knew she was cheating. I had no proof, not yet, but I knew. I could feel it in the way she avoided my touch, the way she was constantly on her phone with the screen tilted away from me, the way she started picking fights over nothing, just to leave the house. And now, here she was, humiliating me in my own home, in front of her mother, mocking me. That night, I lay in bed while she scrolled through her phone beside me, occasionally giggling at something on the screen. I turned my head and watched her, really watched her. The way she smiled at whatever she was looking at, the way her fingers typed quickly before she deleted something and retyped it. She thought I was a joke? She had no idea what was coming. The plan begins. For weeks, I played dumb. I let her believe I was oblivious, that I was still the trusting fool she took me for. She didn't realize that I was watching, waiting, gathering the evidence I needed. I started checking her phone when she was asleep, forwarding texts and screenshots to my own burner account. I installed a tiny GPS tracker in her car, one of those things you can get online for next to nothing. And when I finally had enough, when the puzzle pieces started coming together, I knew exactly how I was going to destroy her. It wouldn't be fast. It wouldn't be loud. It would be cold, calculated, and absolute. She wanted to laugh at me? I would make sure it was the last laugh she ever had. The hardest part was pretending. Every morning, I kissed her on the cheek like a devoted husband. Every night, I listened to her lies as she claimed to be staying late at work or catching up with the girls. I never confronted her. Not yet. That would be too easy. Instead, I waited. And my patience paid off. One evening, as she was getting ready for another one of her girls' nights, I casually leaned against the bedroom doorframe, arms crossed, watching her. "You're seeing someone, aren't you?" I asked, my voice light, as if I were joking. She froze for half a second before laughing too quickly, too forced. "Don't be ridiculous." "Oh, I don't mind if you are," I said smoothly. "If I were you, I'd cheat on me too." That got her. A flicker of guilt, quickly buried beneath the arrogance she always carried. "You're being paranoid," she scoffed, grabbing her purse. "Maybe if you weren't so insecure." I didn't let her finish. I just smiled. "Insecure? No, sweetheart. I'm just prepared." That was all I said before I turned and walked away. I wanted to see how it would affect her. If she'd hesitate. If she'd get nervous. She didn't. She still left. And that was all the confirmation I needed. Catching her in the act. The GPS tracker I had hidden in her car was the best $30 I'd ever spent. I watched her location on my phone as she drove, as she took a familiar route, one that didn't lead to any restaurant or bar. It led to an apartment complex. I parked a block away and walked the rest of the distance, keeping to the shadows, my pulse steady, my mind calculating. This wasn't the time for confrontation. I wasn't here to make a scene. I just needed proof. From across the street, I had a clear view of the second-floor balcony. A man stepped out, stretching, looking too comfortable. Then, my wife appeared in the doorway behind him, laughing as she wrapped her arms around his waist. That was all I needed. I lifted my phone and snapped the photos. The beginning of the end. I didn't go home that night. Instead, I went to a hotel, had a drink, and slept like a baby. The real fun was only just beginning. The morning after I caught her in the act, I woke up with a sense of clarity I hadn't felt in months. My mind was sharp. My purpose was clear. This wasn't just about exposing her. No, that would be too simple. This was about making her regret ever thinking she could humiliate me. She had no idea that while she was tangled up in another man's sheets, I was busy crafting her downfall, gathering more evidence. The photos I had from the night before were good, clear enough to identify her and her lover. But I needed more. If I was going to dismantle her life, I wanted undeniable proof. So I kept digging. I cloned her phone that morning while she was in the shower. A simple trick, really. A few minutes, a small device plugged into her charger, and I had access to her messages, emails, and even deleted files. And that's when I found everything. Hundreds of messages. Photos, videos, secret rendezvous planned weeks in advance. She had been cheating for months, and she hadn't even tried to be careful. And the best part? She wasn't just cheating for love or lust. She was planning her escape. She had a full-blown strategy to leave me once the time was right, once she had drained everything she could from our life together. I scrolled through her chats, my smirk growing with every word. Once I get everything sorted, I'll finally be free of him. He's too stupid to figure it out. By the time he does, I'll be gone. I just need a little more time. Once the accounts are where I need them to be, I'll make my move. That last message sent a slow burn through my veins. She wasn't just betraying me, she was using me. She had planned to leave me broken. I wasn't going to let that happen. The fake apology. That evening, I played my role perfectly. She walked into the house, all smiles, acting as if she hadn't spent the night wrapped around another man. "Hey, babe," she said, dropping her bag onto the counter. "How was your day?" I turned, my expression carefully neutral. "Good. Actually, I've been thinking about." I sighed, running a hand through my hair, making myself look hesitant. "I think I've been unfair to you." Her eyes flickered with surprise, then something else. Hope? Maybe relief? Unfair how? I haven't been as attentive as I should be. I let stress get in the way of our relationship. I want to make things right. I watched as the gears turned in her mind. She thought she had one. That I was so blindly in love with her that I was willing to apologize for her mistakes. And she played right into it. She gave me a sweet, fake smile and stepped closer, wrapping her arms around me. "I'd like that," she whispered. Liar. The silent war begins. I let her believe she was safe, that she was in control. I started being more affectionate, more attentive, exactly what she wanted. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, I was setting her up for the biggest betrayal of her life. I began moving money out of our joint accounts, slowly, methodically. I made copies of all financial records, proving where my money had gone and ensuring she would be left with nothing when the time came. I contacted a lawyer, laying out my case, making sure every legal move was in place before I struck. And then, I made contact with him. The man she had been seeing. The man who, unbeknownst to her, had more to lose than she did. And by the time I was done with them both, they'd be begging for mercy. The moment I decided to reach out to her affair partner, I knew exactly what I was doing. This wasn't just about exposing her anymore. It was about watching her entire world burn from the inside out. I had dug up just enough information on the guy to understand who he really was, his job, his family, his weaknesses. Turns out, he wasn't some bachelor with nothing to lose. He was married. And his wife? Oh, she was about to become my greatest ally. Making the call. I found her on social media easily, a picture-perfect woman with an adoring caption about how much she loved her husband. How blind she was. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. I sent her a message. Me. "Hey, I know this is going to sound insane, but I need to talk to you about your husband. It's important." She didn't respond right away. So I sent her proof. Screenshots of their messages. Photos of them together. A video clip I had extracted from my wife's phone, one that left no doubt about what they were doing. It took exactly 10 minutes before my phone rang. Her voice was shaking. Who are you?" I exhaled. "I'm the husband of the woman your man has been screwing." Silence. Then a quiet, "Oh my God." I let that sink in before delivering the real bombshell. "I think it's time we take them down together." The dominoes start falling. She was furious. Not just heartbroken, not just betrayed, furious. She wanted revenge just as badly as I did. And I had the perfect plan. We agreed not to confront them yet. That would be too easy, too emotional. Instead, we would collect, observe. So we waited. A few days passed, and my wife kept up her act, smiling, kissing me, acting like the perfect wife. Meanwhile, she was still sneaking off to see her lover, still lying to my face. What she didn't know was that every single meeting was now being recorded. GPS logs, photos, screenshots, calls, bank transactions. Her lover's wife had access to his accounts and found proof that he was sending my wife money. Turns out, she wasn't just screwing him, she was leeching off of him too. That was exactly what I needed. Setting the trap. The night before we executed our plan, I took my wife out to dinner. A beautiful, expensive night out, filled with wine and laughter. I held her hand, looked her in the eyes, and told her how much I loved her. And she ate it up. She had no idea that this was the last night she would ever feel safe. Because the next day, her life would be over. The morning of her downfall, I woke up early. I lay in bed for a moment, watching her sleep, completely unaware of what was about to happen. She looked peaceful, content, even. It was almost funny. I got up, showered, dressed, and made breakfast, just like any other day. She came downstairs yawning, stretching, giving me a lazy smile. "Morning," she mumbled, still groggy. I poured her coffee, kissed her on the forehead, and smiled back. "Morning, babe." I had never been more calm. The ambush. I had arranged everything perfectly. I knew her routine. I knew she had planned to meet him in the afternoon. One last secret rendezvous before coming home to me like the devoted wife she pretended to be. Only this time, she wasn't walking into a hotel room with her lover. She was walking into a trap. At exactly 1 p.m., she arrived at the hotel. I know because I was watching from the parking lot, sitting comfortably in my car, a cup of coffee in my hand. Her affair partner was already inside, waiting. But he wasn't alone. His wife was there too. And she brought company. The confrontation. I had convinced his wife that public humiliation was the way to go. That we needed to expose them in a way they would never recover from. So she invited his parents, his boss, even a few of their closest friends. And the moment my wife stepped inside, thinking she was about to enjoy another afternoon of stolen pleasure, she was met with a room full of people staring at her in disgust. Her lover's wife stepped forward, shaking with rage. "Surprise, you cheating whore." I wish I could have seen the look on my wife's face. I wish I could have watched as the realization hit her, as her world came crashing down. She tried to lie. She denied everything, called it a misunderstanding, but then the evidence started coming out. Screenshots, photos, bank transfers, everything. Her lover? He just stood there, silent, knowing there was no way out. His wife turned to him and said, "Pack your shit and get out of my house." My wife? She looked around, panicked, searching for me. She thought I would be there to save her. She had no idea I was watching from a distance, enjoying every second. Her world falls apart. I left before the police arrived. Yes, the police. See, her lover's wife had another surprise. She had found evidence of fraud. Apparently, my dear wife and her affair partner had been stealing money, moving funds around in ways that weren't exactly legal. I had no idea about that part, but it made things even better. She was escorted out of the hotel in handcuffs. And me? I went home, poured myself a drink, and waited for the inevitable. The call came hours later. It was her, sobbing, begging. I let it ring. Then, I blocked her number. She wanted to laugh at me? She thought I was a joke? Well, the joke was on her. I didn't respond to her calls. Not that night, not the next day. Instead, I sat back and watched as her life fell apart in real time. The aftermath was glorious. The fallout begins. By the time she was released, everything had already started collapsing around her. Her lover's wife filed for divorce immediately, taking half of everything and exposing him to his workplace for misconduct. He lost his job within 48 hours. As for my wife, she had nowhere to run. She came home that night, eyes red, face pale. She had the nerve to act normal, as if nothing had happened, as if she hadn't just been publicly humiliated and arrested in front of people she knew. She stepped inside cautiously, looking around like a stranger in her own home. I sat on the couch, sipping my whiskey, and gestured to the suitcase by the door. "Start packing." She blinked. What? I set my glass down. "You heard me. I want you out." Her lips parted, her hands shaking. She knew she had nowhere to go. She started crying. I can explain," she choked out. I laughed. A deep, cruel laugh that made her flinch. "Oh, sweetheart," I said coldly. "You already did. In all those messages. In every lie you told me. In every hotel you snuck off to." I leaned forward, my voice dropping. "Now, get the fuck out of my house." The final blow. She collapsed onto the floor, sobbing like a child. "Please, I have nowhere to go," she whispered. Not my problem. Because what she didn't know yet, what I had been saving for last, was that I had already taken care of everything. I had moved all my money out of our accounts. I had transferred the house into my name only. I had already filed for divorce, citing infidelity, with mountains of evidence to ensure she got nothing. And that job she had? Gone. Her lover's wife had sent their employer every dirty detail. Turns out, companies don't take kindly to employees sneaking off during work hours to fuck around. She had nothing. No money. No job. No place to stay. And I didn't care. I stood up, towering over her. "You made your bed," I said, grabbing my keys. "Now sleep in it." And with that, I walked out, leaving her broken on the floor. I didn't look back when I walked out that door. The moment I stepped outside, I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with the cool evening air. It was over. Well, almost. There were still a few loose ends to tie up. Locking her out? I drove around for a bit, letting the satisfaction sink in. By the time I returned home, her suitcase was still by the door. She was sitting on the couch, looking lost. I thought she started, but I held up a hand. No, you don't get to think anymore. I pulled a folder from my bag and tossed it onto the table. What's this? She whispered. Divorce papers, I said simply. Sign them. Her eyes widened. You already filed them? Yep. Weeks ago. I smirked. Before you even knew I was onto you. She swallowed hard, staring at the papers. But we can work this out. I laughed. Actually laughed. She had the audacity to think there was anything left to fix. I leaned down, staring into her teary, pathetic eyes. You've humiliated me, I said slowly. Used me. Mocked me. And now, you want to play the victim. I grabbed the papers, flipped to the last page, and placed a pen in front of her. Sign. The papers. Her lips trembled. I don't have anywhere to go. Not my problem. She hesitated, her fingers twitching over the pen. She knew she had no choice. So, with shaking hands, she signed. The moment she realized she had nothing, she signed her last lifeline away without even knowing it. She didn't know that the house was already mine. She didn't know that her credit cards had been frozen earlier that morning. She didn't know that I had emptied our joint accounts long before she even suspected me. And she certainly didn't know that her car? Also mine. She was about to find out. Now, I said, taking the signed papers and tucking them neatly into my folder. Get out. Her breath hitched. I need time. No, you don't. I pulled out a new set of keys. I changed the locks. Her face paled. She looked at the suitcase by the door, then back at me. Her lips parted, but no words came out. For the first time in our marriage, she was speechless. I picked up her suitcase and shoved it outside. Goodbye, darling, I said with a smirk. And then, without another glance, I shut the door in her face. The moment I shut the door, I locked it. Deadbolt. Chain. Security system activated. She was officially locked out of my life. But I wasn't done yet. Oh no. She needed to understand that this wasn't just a breakup. This was her downfall, cutting off every escape route. I sat on the couch, grabbed my phone, and started making calls. First, the bank. I confirmed that our joint accounts were officially closed. The ones that had once been full, now empty. Every dollar redirected to my personal account, the one she never had access to. She had been planning to use me until she was ready to leave. I just beat her to it. Second, the car dealership. My name was on the title. Hers wasn't. A simple call and her car was officially repossessed. She was broke, homeless, and now carless. And just when I thought I couldn't make it any worse for her. The final call was to her employer, destroying her reputation. See, in the process of collecting evidence against her, I had discovered something interesting. She had been stealing from her company, falsified expense reports, fudged timesheets, even using company funds for her secret dates. And me? I had the receipts. So I sent everything to her boss. Every fake claim, every shady transaction, every dirty little secret. And within the hour, she was fired. Watching her breakdown. By now, she had realized what was happening. My phone buzzed nonstop with calls, voicemails, frantic texts. Her, what the fuck did you do? Her, my credit cards aren't working. Her, my car is missing. Her, I just got fired, you bastard. I smirked. Then, I sent one final message. Me. Hope it was worth it, sweetheart. Enjoy your new life. Then, I blocked her. Everywhere. She had nothing left. And I had never felt more free. Blocking her was the best decision I had ever made. For the first time in years, my phone was silent. No more fake apologies. No more excuses. No more manipulations. But I knew she wouldn't give up that easily. And I was right. The public meltdown. Later that night, I got a call from a friend. Dude, your ex is losing her shit online. I raised an eyebrow. Already? Yeah. She's posting all over social media, saying you ruined her life and that she's homeless because of you. I laughed. Actually laughed. Of course, she wouldn't admit the truth. Wouldn't say that she destroyed her own life with her lies, her cheating, her greed. She was trying to make me the villain. Classic. But here's the thing. I was 10 steps ahead. I had already told everyone what she had done. Friends. Family. Even people at her job before she got fired. No one was on her side, begging for help. It wasn't long before she started reaching out to mutual friends. Some of them sent me screenshots. Her, can you talk to him for me? He won't answer my calls. Her, I have nowhere to go. Please. Her, tell him I'll do anything to fix this. Anything? Where was this energy when she was sneaking off to hotels? When she was laughing behind my back? When she was planning to leave me for her affair partner? Pathetic. I told everyone the same thing. She made her bed. Now she can lie in it. And they all agreed. No one wanted to help her. She was truly alone. Her final attempt. A few nights later, I heard a knock at my door. I didn't even have to check the peephole. I knew it was her. I opened the door just enough to see her standing there, rain-soaked, shivering, eyes red from crying. Please, she whispered. Let me in. I leaned against the doorframe, staring at her. This woman had mocked me, betrayed me, used me. No? She was nothing. No, I said simply. Her lips trembled. I have nothing. I smirked. I know. Then, I shut the door in her face. And I never looked back. The sound of the door slamming shut was final. I didn't need to see her reaction to know what it looked like. She had spent months, years, thinking she was in control. That she could use me, lie to me, humiliate me, and walk away unscathed. But now, she had nothing. And I had never felt better. The last message. I expected her to disappear after that night. To slink away in shame, maybe go crawling back to whatever scraps her lover had left behind. But the next morning, I woke up to one final message. A long, rambling, pathetic text from an unknown number. Her, you really did it, didn't you? You really destroyed me. Her, I was stupid. I was selfish, but I didn't think you'd actually throw me away like this. You used to love me. You used to care. Her, I get it now. I get what I lost. I just wish I could take it back. I read it, deleted it, and moved on with my day. Her life continues to crumble. A few weeks later, I heard through the grapevine that she was couch surfing, bouncing from one friend to another, burning every bridge she had left. No one wanted to deal with her. No one wanted to save her. She had betrayed too many people. And me? I was thriving. New apartment, new job opportunities. Even started talking to someone new, someone who actually valued me. Life was good. The final nail in her coffin. Months passed. I stopped thinking about her. She became nothing more than a distant mistake. But then, one day, I got one last update. A friend sent me a link to her GoFundMe. She was begging for money. The title? I lost everything and need help rebuilding my life. I nearly died laughing. The woman who mocked me, lied to me, cheated on me, now begging strangers for handouts. I thought about donating a single dollar, just to let her know I saw it. But then I realized she wasn't worth even that. And so, I closed the tab and forgot about her forever.